Okay, we'll get started now. My name's Janice Dysert. I am a research and instructional services librarian based at the main library. And today I'm going to talk about altmetrics. Now, has anybody heard that phrase? Do people know what altmetrics are? Anybody? Okay, I just wanted to show of hands in case of me. Well, altmetrics is a fairly recent development. I was looking back through my files, and I first have a welcome. I first had an email talking about altmetrics back in 2012, so I'm sure they were mentioned a little bit before that. But really, they've only been around in the last 6 years. And altmetrics is the term that's been given to metrics that measure the amount of attention research is receiving online. And it could be receiving attention lots of different ways, and we're going to go over some of those today. I forgot to turn on the screen local in the room, so we're going to do that right now. Okay. What we're looking at right now is the library homepage, and just a sort of housekeeping. I do have a guide I've created on altmetrics, and if you just type altmetrics into the search box of the library homepage, which is library.missouri.edu, the guide will show up at the very top. And everything I talk about today will basically be in this guide. So I did give you a handout which basically lists the most important URLs I'm going to talk about today. But in the future, you know, you can just refer to my guide, since keeping a piece of paper isn't too convenient. So actually earlier this year, the University of Indiana came out with what they're calling the metrics toolkit, which I've linked on the guide, and it's also listed on your handout. And the metrics toolkit lists all the different metrics that are used for research, primarily articles and books, but it could be any other kind of research too. It could be conference proceedings, just anything you can think of. And some of the traditional metric that people have used to determine the significance of an article is how often an article is cited, or how often a book is cited. That's what's been around for years, and that's what people have been using. And that's still the standard. I mean, that's still the gold standard, and that's probably the most important metric. But it does take a while for items to get cited. You'll publish something, or you'll post something online, and it's going to take a while for people to, you know, discover it, then publish their own research and cite your research. So that can take, you know, 6 months or up to, you know, several years. You don't know. Altmetrics tend to be much more immediate. As soon as you post something is published online as an article or a book, or you post data in a depository or something, people could discover it, and online usage could be captured with some of these altmetric companies, which I'll mention in just a minute. But some of the different altmetrics that people are monitoring, or Amazon reviews, mentions in blogs, how often an article is downloaded, or a book chapter is downloaded, mentions in Facebook, likes and shares. There's Goodreads, which I don't know if people are familiar with. That's kind of a book review site that you sort of assume people who have read the book are the only ones reviewing it. I guess that may not always be the case. But That's one, and let's see. We'll talk about Mendeley a little bit later. And we've got monograph sales, mentions in news, policy mentions, which is a fairly new development, which is pretty good for research, and mentions in Twitter and references in Wikipedia. And all of these in this toolkit, it's listing all the metrics people are using. And if you click on any of these, there'll be a nice write-up on how people are using the metric, what exactly it is, how they're calculating it, limitations, and where it's available from. And so a lot of good information is on this toolkit, which is from the University of Indiana. And let's go ahead and, any questions so far? If not, we're going to, I'll just leave my guide up here, but I'm going to go, I'll show you some places you can find altmetrics for different items. And the easiest one to use, the easiest source is just to go to the library homepage and use Discovered.mu. And Discovered.mu is a large search box in the middle of the library homepage. It's a Google-like search engine that is used for library resources. So it searches and covers a lot of resources the library subscribes to, not everything, but a lot of things. And you could type in the name, you could type in the article, title of an article or keywords or an author's name. I'm just going to, for an example, I'm just going to type in some keywords. So we're going to look up things on Twitter and protests. And just like Google, you're going to get a mixture of results on this Discovered.mu. You'll get articles, you'll get books, are the two primary things. You could get magazines, you could get government documents. And notice in your results field these brightly colored icons. And it says Plum X metrics next to it. We'll look at this one. This first entry is a book, Twitter and Tear Gas. And this Plum X metrics is the name of a company. It's a commercial company that started a few years ago, and its purpose is to collect this altmetric data. That's the purpose of the company. And they've created this little icon here, this little colorful graphic. And if you'll notice, each little circle here covers different things. The green is usage, and they're measuring different kinds of usage. Purple is what they're calling captures, and gold. So each of these little circles represents something else. And the circles get bigger depending on the numbers, the counts for these different categories. And if you look at this little icon down here for this, another article, you'll see it's got, so far it's got less attention, and so the little circles are smaller. So let's go back to this book, and we can click on this See Details to get a more readable screen. And from here you can go into a little more detail for usage. They do holdings, and this is how many libraries have bought the book. They're taking measurements from a database called WorldCat. A lot of libraries use this. They use WorldCat to enter information about their books, and WorldCat will tell us which libraries have purchased the book. And WorldCat is something the library uses to figure out where to send interlibrary loan requests. When people request items that we don't own, we can use WorldCat for that. But it's also telling you a lot of libraries own this book. For readers, if you look at this closer, they're looking at the site Goodreads, and they're also looking at Mendeley. Mendeley is a bibliographic management, citation management system. It's similar to EndNote and Zotero. It's a free system. You can download it for free. I know a lot of people on this campus use it. And it's what people use to store the references they find for their research, whether it's books, articles, conference proceedings, patents, whatever. And in Mendeley, they monitor what people are downloading and putting into their libraries, their own personal libraries. It's just keeping track of that. And apparently so far, 20 Mendeley users have added this book to their system, their Mendeley library. And then there's other things for citations. It's the traditional citation indexes. PlumX monitors a database called Scopus, and that's not surprising because Scopus and PlumX are both owned by the Elsevier company, which is a big, primarily scientific publisher. And so that's why they're kind of taking advantage of all the resources they own. So this is what you get in Discovered MU. PlumX is one of the commercial providers of Altmetrics. And the university could, if they wanted to, they could subscribe to PlumX. They could pay a certain amount of money each year, and we would get more, we'd have more of an ability to manipulate, well, I shouldn't say manipulate, but look at results closer. You could each basically create your own account on PlumX and keep track of your publications through PlumX. But we would have to have an institutional subscription for that, which we do not have. And so the next best thing is to look for the free stuff they provide. And fortunately, PlumX provides a lot of free stuff. So this is in Discovered MU. And a second source of altmetric data is the Scopus database. And so let's go to databases and type in Scopus. Scopus is one of our most heavily used resources on campus. It's a database that covers all topics back to 1970. It's probably strongest in the sciences and social sciences, but it also covers some humanities. And we'll just go into that and run the same search. We'll do Twitter and protests. Now Scopus, let's get rid of this box. Unlike Discovered MU, Scopus primarily is covering articles. They have a few books, but it's a pretty small set of books. And they say they do, and they do have some conference proceedings in here too. But you'll notice in Scopus, you can't tell from the results screen if there are any altmetric data. You really have to look at the full display for an article. So if you just click on the title of one of the articles, if there's altmetric data, it'll show up in the right-hand corner of the full display for the article where you can read about the abstract. Read the abstract and the keywords and look at the bibliography. And this will only display on the right if an article has some kind of online attention that's being monitored. So you will see a lot of articles that don't have anything, particularly older articles. But again, Scopus is using PlumX, and that, as I mentioned, it's because Elsevier owns both, so they're putting PlumX. And so you're going to see the same kind of little graphic, color graphic, and you can look at the details. In this case, the article has not been out very long, so but you can see it's already got 13 Mendeley readers, and it's gotten quite a few tweets. So this is Scopus. So Discovered MU and Scopus. Now there's another company, commercial company, that's also putting out altmetric data, and that company is called altmetric.com. And let's just get rid of that. And let's, there's a new database that just came out earlier this year called Dimensions. So this is search. And it's a brand new database. It's similar, very similar to Scopus and Google Scholar. It's just called Dimensions. And this very colorful screen comes up, and it's a little confusing to see how to search it. But if you come over here to the right, this little red button that says Access Free App is what you want to click on. And then you want to use the free version. There is a version that the university could pay for, which is a little more powerful, but so far we have not done that. Immunity has not done that, but you can actually get to a lot of good information just from the free version. So we're going into the free version. And this is primarily covering journal articles from a pretty large time period. I'm not sure they really define their time period exactly, but they have over 98 million articles in Dimensions so far, so they've got quite a few. And if they're just showing the most recent ones here, and if you scan down on this results list, you'll see this little Altmetric and then a number. This is the other company, altmetric.com, and you can see that they're measuring tweets and Facebook, Mendeley. The number, you know, the higher the number, the more online attention an item is getting. You can see this one. It's been picked up by news outlets. And you can click on this to get more details. I thought I'd show you an article that's gotten quite a bit of attention in the last year, because it's fun to look at ones that really are drawing attention. So it was on, I don't know if people saw this, there was a research article about how insects are really declining over the past quarter century, more than 75% decline in total flying insect biomass. And notice the Altmetrics score for this article is over 5,000. So if we click on this little icon, we can get all the details. Now, how exactly altmetric.com comes up with this number here, I don't really know. And to me, the number really only really indicates the higher the number, the more attention it's getting. But I don't think you can really compare numbers of different articles that well, because it's getting attention from all sorts of different sources, which are listed on the left. I like altmetric.com because it covers a lot of news outlets. And to me, it's fun to look at, to see how news outlets are taking the very scientific research that this article is reporting on, and how they're rewording it so that it will appeal to, you know, the general public. So it's always fun to kind of look through, and you'll see, you know, Scientific American. Some of the news outlets you'll recognize, Seattle Times. Some you will not. They are international, so you can see there's foreign publications on here too. So that's just somewhat interesting. A lot of tweets for this article. It's been referenced in Wikipedia, and if you actually click on this, it will tell you where it's been mentioned in Wikipedia, which articles. And let's see. And again, Mendeley, in this case, Mendeley has had over 1,000 people download this article into their Mendeley software. And altmetric.com is the one that started to monitor policy documents. So to me, this is somewhat interesting because policy documents could really be a measure of impact. And it may be, I know recently, one of the professors in business, they were trying to find out if their articles had any impact on policy, and so they were able to look their articles up on in Dimensions, and they could see if there were any policy mentions for their articles. So this is somewhat useful. They've recently added I forget which one, Altmetric or Plumex, has added patents to what they monitor. And so you'll soon be able to see what patents are citing your work. Now, in addition to these two companies, Plumex and Altmetric, just publishers, regular publishers, are starting to feature Altmetric data on their journal sites. So you could go to, let's just look up an article, and you can go to the journal website. This particular article is in Nature. And so now it's kind of nice, it's kind of fun if you pull up an article online that's at the publisher website. You can look around and see if they say something like metrics. In this case, they're saying article metrics over here on the right. Sometimes some of the publishers have tabs here that might say metrics. And you can click on this hot link. And in this case, Nature is using, you recognize the little circle here, that's altmetric.com. They're using altmetric.com data. And again, I think it's partly because, well, I think they're kind of owned by the same company, but also altmetric.com and Plumex too will sell their data to publishers, so publishers can link to their data, paying a fee. They can link to these Altmetric reports and basically kind of enhance their information about their article. And what's kind of nice is it'll tell you, like, this article is in the 99th percentile of tracked articles of similar age in all journals. I didn't mention it with Twitter. You can look around. I think they do this with Mendeley too. They'll tell you what companies are, providing the most activity on this article, the most attention to this article. And I guess in this case, it's United Kingdom. I don't know if these authors are British or not. I mean, it's followed by the US, but there's a lot of attention in Great Britain on this particular article. So some of the publishers, as I mentioned, are contracting with Plumex or altmetric.com, but other publishers are coming up with their own statistics. So let's look at one of those. Okay, this is for everybody who likes dogs. Okay, this particular article came out in 2012. It was published by the journal PLOS ONE, which is a very big open access journal. It publishes articles that are freely available to everyone. And you'll notice over on the right-hand side of the page, they sort of summarize some of the online usage. 130 people have saved this article. It's received 58 citations based on what this publisher monitors. Almost 33,000 people have viewed the article and 50 have shared it. And notice there's also a tab here in the middle of the page. If you click on that, the tab, it may give you a little more information. In fact, I find this useful for article views. You notice there's almost 33,000 views. But as far as downloads go, it's a much smaller number. And to me, downloads probably indicates really serious interest in an article when you download it versus whether you're just looking at it online. So that can be interesting.
Question for you.
Uh-huh.
What if the information provided by the publisher is different than, let's say,
Okay, the question is, if the information is different from what's provided by altmetric.com or Plumex or the publisher, And I have to tell you, it's going to be different because they're not totally monitoring the same thing. Now at the publisher side, they're going to be the best ones for actual article views, page views. The publisher site's going to be the best for that.
Publisher says 2,656 downloads and Plum says 38.
Yeah, because Plum, I have to say, altmetric.com and PlumX, I don't think they monitor much for downloads. So yeah, I don't think we're going to get great numbers for downloads for those. So that's why the big difference. So
they have a few channels where people can download if they monitor.
Yeah, it's just a few, and I'm not even sure where they're getting those downloads. You'd have to look at, I mean, you might be able to look at the Altmetric page and click on that and see where they're getting the downloads. They may be getting the downloads from some full, we have some databases that we access full text from, like EBSCO Post provides full text to selected journals aside from the publisher site. You go through this EBSCO database, which we have a lot of it on this campus, and you're able to access an article, the full text of an article that the library does not subscribe to directly from the publisher. And so probably they're counting that, because I think somebody, I forget which one, if it's PlumX or Altmetric, but I think one of them does monitor EBSCO, the database EBSCO, and that's probably where they're getting their downloads.
Brings me to, that leads me to another question. It's not right on topic, but spend too much time on it. But there's a thing called ResearchGate, and you put up full. They really recruit you to put up full text of all your articles, which of course journals maybe don't like that because they want to get paid for them by libraries and by individuals.
Right. He's mentioning the website ResearchGate, which
Is it like EBSCO?
Well, ResearchGate, EBSCO is a service that libraries subscribe to and pay money, and then they offer it to students and faculty. ResearchGate is a free website that researchers can join, and ResearchGate has gotten into trouble. They've been sued. They're being sued by lots of publishers because they strongly encourage authors to post their articles and make them freely available online. And a lot of authors don't realize that even though they wrote the article, if they often signed away their rights to freely post the article when they had it published by any publisher. They have to sign a contract, and they often don't notice in the fine print that it says, this version of the article cannot be, posted by you. And so just in the last year, a lot of publishers have started, I think a lot of them joined together into one suit, and they are putting pressure on ResearchGate to take down those articles. And ResearchGate is starting to do that. They're starting to feel the pressure. But right, you're right. I don't think Altmetric or PlumX is monitoring ResearchGate because most of the articles posted there are done so illegal, or a lot of them, I shouldn't say most, but a lot of them are posted illegally. So I don't think but you're right. And there's also another big download site called Sci-Hub, which is overseas. It's a lady, I think, Russian, not exactly Russian, but close to Russian. And she's made it her mission in life to get as many articles as she can, basically illegally, and posting them so they're freely available to everybody. And a lot of people are going to that site and getting articles from there. So these download numbers that you see from the publisher website are from Altmetric or PlumX. It's going to be a subset of the real usage, because you just can't monitor everything.
It is possible, and I'm not sure if any of the Altmetric or the other ones, altmetric.com in particular, that's institutional repositories, put a badge on their repository items. And I wonder if the article you're looking at? You know, is there a copy? Because you bring up research data and then like subscription and all of that stuff. So I'm not sure if you're interested in the access conversation, but there are legal ways that you can put a manuscript in a repository. You can go out there, might have done it with our institution. Put a manuscript in the institution repository. That's the peer-reviewed manuscript work published. And some of the altmetric aggregators might pick up downloads from the repository. But that's just what I do.
I'm interested in talking to you about it afterwards because we used to buy paper briefings and people overseas in poor countries that couldn't afford journals could write and ask for the reprint and to send it to them. And that was all perfectly as it was supposed to be. And now it's gotten to be difficult because, you know.
Right, yeah, accessing articles legally has become interesting. And some, I have to admit, some of these publishers, the big publishers, are offering their services at either real discounts for the underdeveloped countries or sometimes free. So sometimes they can get it that way. But you're right. I mean, a lot of researchers from other countries are relying on these free services, whether or not they're legal. You know, if the article's there and they can get it, you're going to go for it because otherwise. And that's the justification this Russian lady has given for creating Sci-Hub, because she said, I can't afford all these articles. Nobody can afford to pay for all these articles because usually the articles are, you know, $25 a piece or more. And yeah, and that's a lot for a researcher, particularly in a country outside of Europe and the US who may not have much of any funding for their research. So yeah, all this altmetric data, there's nothing, it's kind of like, it's the same with citing articles, citation counts for articles. There's no one place that's totally comprehensive for everything. I mean, a lot of people for citation counts, they like to use Google Scholar because Google Scholar, the citation counts tend to be higher than, say, Web of Science or Scopus, the two big databases that do citation counts. And that's because Google Scholar covers so much more research than Web of Science and Scopus. But on the other hand, Web of Science and Scopus, they have criteria for articles to appear in their database. They have to meet certain criteria. So you know they're from good research journals, whereas Google Scholar, you're not sure because Google Scholar won't tell you what they're covering. So no. I mean, you can sort of tell if you click on the you know, the cited, the number of citations, you can click on that and you can see all the articles that they list citing that article. So you can.
And some of them aren't necessarily from the scientific.
Right. Right, they could be from anything. So
Altmetrics are saying how many times were you in a newspaper or tweeted or whatever. And I think Google Scholar kind of started doing, you know, just counting everything in a way.
yeah,
Not
and
tweets, but they can find it and print it down to it.
in Altmetrics, I mean, these two companies are competitors, and you know, so each one is looking around, trying to find other stuff they can monitor, and then they add it, and then of course the other company's going to add it and look for other things. So you just have to pick and choose what you think is important. And I was going to talk about this later, but I read an article recently that was kind of examining these counts, trying to determine if high altmetric counts signified higher citation counts, if they were a good predictor of higher citation counts. And they said the preliminary research is showing, yes, that sort of seems to be it, but they said the main indicator among all these altmetric counts is the Mendeley. Mendeley was the best indicator, the Mendeley numbers, how many people are downloading the article into their Mendeley accounts. That was the best indicator for whether or not an article was going to be cited a lot in the future. So some of this, I have to admit, is probably, if you've written an article, to me, it would be fun to, you know, get online and see what's happening, see if people are tweeting or if a news outlet is covering it. So some of it may just be personal interest. How much of this is really going to evolve into something that's really important as far as promotion and tenure and being hired and getting grants, that remains to be seen. But certainly a lot of people are monitoring this, and who knows what's going to happen. Now, Stephen mentioned depositories having altmetric data, and that's true. I was going to show you our institutional repository is in MoSpace. And if you're affiliated with the University of Missouri, you can put scholarly academic research in here into this repository. You'll get a permanent URL, and they do gather usage statistics. Let's look at one item, just pull up one item. Hunger Atlas from 2016. If you look at the full display, this was related items. And if you come down here to the bottom, it's not real obvious, no color in MoSpace as far as altmetric data goes. So it doesn't exactly stand out, but there's this link, show statistical information. And if you click on this link, you'll see so far 54 people have viewed the item, Hunger Atlas, and 24 have downloaded it. And the main interest is in the United States. They have these graphs for item views. It's a little misleading because these numbers, you know, it looks like, wow, this is a lot of use. But then you look on the side and you say, oh, the numbers are fairly low. But you never know. They could be higher. So, I mean, depending on what the item is, there could be more views. So I'll promote this resource. If you have, you know, like posters you've done for something, a conference proceeding or a presentation on campus, or miscellaneous scholarly material, not necessarily articles, though Stephen is working on a kind of a new, I don't know what you want to call it, a drive to have faculty put articles in MoSpace that they're allowed to put in.
Yeah. Yeah, awareness of the licensing, the publication agreements and things like that, which a lot of times do allow you to place a version, you know, but not the publishers.
So you could, it's possible based on your license, and repeating for online people, that you may be able to post something in MoSpace, an article that you've also published in a journal. You could do a different version of it. And in MoSpace and the other depositories, they do have permanent URLs. They are crawled by Google, so people can find your information. And I know our MoSpace person was looking into having like altmetric.com or something in the repository. So adding more altmetric information into MoSpace in the future. There's other repositories around. There's like Figshare that does data. It has usage statistics too. And just all, I think probably more likely than not, if it's a repository, it's going to have some kind of usage statistic in it that you can look at. What did you say?
If it's a repository,
It's most likely it's going to report some usage statistics, because there are now different repositories for different fields of research and all sorts of data. So repositories are sort of growing. MoSpace is basically for people affiliated with the University of Missouri. But then there are also different repositories for different fields. And Figshare is a data repository that just basically anybody can use. It doesn't have any restrictions. So it's a growing area. Let's put it that way. And let's go, Mendeley, as I mentioned earlier, Mendeley seems to be the biggest indicator of future, how often an article or item is cited in the future. And there is a place you can go just to look at Mendeley counts. And I put the little URL on your handout, and it's in my, on my online guide. Search. Oops, there's a hyphen in there. Okay, we're in Mendeley, and here you can just type in, look for a person, or you can type in the name of a paper. Let's just do, oops, why didn't that show? Oh, it's not showing the article I wanted, but, oh, let's try this. Sure. Got it slightly wrong. This was an article that was written by a former researcher at the University of Missouri that garnered all sorts of attention because of the subject matter. It was talking about how plants, when insects start eating the leaves of these plants, the plants respond to the vibration of the leaves and basically are sending out chemicals to battle the insects. So it was kind of cool research. And you can see this particular article had 354 readers in Mendeley, and 56 have actually cited the article. Now, you don't know when these Mendeley people are citing the article, whether they cited it for a journal article or something that's going to be published, or whether it was a student that just cited the article for a paper they turned in for a class. You don't really know that. But this indicates, you know, these are pretty high numbers, and it would indicate this article is probably getting cited a lot. And if you go to, let's go back to, probably do it in dimensions. Okay. And in dimensions, this database has been cited 62 times. And it's got an Altmetrics score of 617, which is pretty high. And you don't even know, they do Mendeley counts, and I don't know, are they Mendeley 53? Nope. Yeah, they're pretty close. So they must, I'm sure they don't, they probably monitor Mendeley like once a week or something. So that's a little off, but. So I guess that's the main takeaway, is Mendeley is your best indicator of future interest of articles. But research is just starting in this area, so who knows what will come down the pike. And that's basically all I wanted to say about Altmetrics. If people have other questions about it, I can, happy to, yes.
You have any idea how which courses they're looking at, like why they decided to go to Facebook Live?
He's asking why, if I know why the altmetric companies pick the sources they do for information. I think they're basically casting a wide net and trying to come up with anything that may signify interest in an article. So Facebook, they know, they both cover Facebook, because Facebook and Twitter, because those are used widely by a lot of different people. as I said, these two companies are competing. So when one gets something, the other one's probably going to get that one and then try to find something else. I mean, I think eventually they're going to run out of resources to monitor. But and a little bit of it, as I kind of alluded to before, depends on their affiliations with other companies. Like PlumX, as I mentioned, is owned by the same company that owns Scopus. So PlumX is going to have citation counts from Scopus. And Altmetric, I think, is kind of owned by the same people who have dimensions. So that affects somewhat too, who owns what in their relations, because and their relationships with those different companies. Can you think of something they haven't covered that they should be covering?
No, personally, I'm just wondering if they were open about their processes.
Well, I mean, I'm not sure. I mean, they're sort of open in the sense that they basically list what they're getting. You know, they actually list the actual tweets. They're listing the Facebook. They're listing the Amazon reviews. So they tend to list the things that they're drawing from. So I'd say they're fairly open. How they monitor all this stuff, I have no idea. How they can. Yes.
Well, so he mentioned YouTube comments, and one of the things going back to Google Scholar, and they won't tell you what they're looking at. So Google is pretty stingy with their data because that's the whole business. I noticed that a lot of the sources that they use are companies that provide open feeds or open APIs.
Okay.
So Facebook, Twitter, Reddit, these all have interfaces where programmers can request specific data from the system. So Facebook, you can connect to them and say, how many likes does this thing have? And they have programming functions to do that. Google's not good at that. That's what I do. YouTube, things like that. And so I was just looking at altmetrics.com, and that's pretty much what they have historical data from LinkedIn, because LinkedIn at some point stopped providing data.
Okay. So for anybody online, he was saying that a lot of these companies have open APIs, and that is what some of these Altmetric and PlumX are using. And of course, so I guess for now, to me, it's mainly just interesting to see what's going on with particular articles. And of course, it depends on the topic, the research topic. I mean, if you're in a fairly esoteric research field, you're probably not going to get a whole lot of Facebook likes or things or coverage in, news outlets, particularly, though they also cover scientific news outlets. So not just the ones for general public. So that affects your numbers too, what field you're in, what the topic is. I mean, some topics just lend themselves more to attention than others. So it's really hard to tell, 10 years from now, what this will all really mean. But people are doing research on it, and we shall see. Yeah, it's fun. I'd say, if you were going up for promotion or something, you might want to supplement your traditional data that you enter with, if you had an article that had been downloaded a whole lot of times or got a lot of attention in the news outlets or something, that might be something to highlight, just as, additional information. But it remains to be seen, as I said, how much Altmetric data will be used as far as promotion and hiring and things like that.
One of the things that have some things in kind of evident the things, potential from outside of academia comes from out.
Yeah, in the past few years, there's been a real emphasis on getting your research out to the general public more, and or being able to explain it to the general public. And yeah, so this kind of helps you see at least how other people are doing it. I think some people think if they tweet a lot about an article, that will gain more attention. I mean, they're doing some research in that area. I think they haven't decided yet if that really will affect things or not, but because you have some control over tweeting, and I mean, some people are starting to tweet themselves, and some, scientific organizations. My background is more science, so that's what I follow. They're some of the publishers, like for Nature and Science, they're starting to tweet about the articles they publish. So that's, some of these tweets are coming from organizations, not individuals. What's your field of research?
Sometimes,
Insights.
so how do you have all the women who have reviews, frequencies, and Mendeley?
Oh, okay. Yeah, that was pretty amazing to watch the coverage of that article, how that kind of took off as far as altmetric data goes.
Yeah. Yeah, I've got friends who have just down the road, go up at dinner, and I don't know if it was that particular article, but it was articles of that kind, and they were both psychologists, but they were talking about, well, can plants have consciousness? And they were, seriously considering it. Well, they can sense things, they can let chemicals go when they sense them.
Yeah, it sort of makes you look at plants in a new light.
Yeah. But something like two.
That's right. Well, thank you for coming.
Thanks for hosting.
And in the future, I hope you monitor altmetrics, or just notice it when you're looking at journal articles. Just kind of check it out, or check out stuff for your own articles. You plug them into Dimensions or Scopus or Discovered in You. Just type in the title of your article and just see if anything's happening.